Miami's waterfront glittered beneath a field of blue and silver lights when Victor Cross arrived at the city's most exclusive private club. The building rose beside the harbor like a glass fortress, hiding guarded lounges, underground wine rooms, private elevators, and restricted corridors behind its glamorous exterior. Victor had just completed an agreement that would strengthen his organization's control over several coastal routes. To mark the occasion, he had invited not only his senior associates but also a small group of trusted mansion employees. Mara Ellison did not belong in their world. She was a poor young American woman who had spent most of her life worrying about rent, unpaid medical bills, and whether her younger sister had enough food. Her simple dress had been borrowed from another housekeeper, and even among the staff, she looked painfully out of place. The wealthy guests noticed. Some handed her empty glasses without looking at her face. Others assumed she had entered the celebration to clean their tables. Mara accepted the humiliation quietly, knowing that losing her job at Victor's mansion would place her family in immediate danger. Rowan Creed noticed her discomfort from across the room. As Victor's head of security, Rowan controlled every camera, entrance, and guard inside the club. He had protected Victor for 12 years and carried the reputation of a man whose loyalty had never been questioned. That reputation made him almost untouchable. While carrying a tray toward the private lounge, Mara saw Rowan leave the celebration and enter a restricted hallway. His name was absent from the night's security schedule for that section. Suspicion pulled her closer. Through a partially opened locker room door, she saw him holding Victor's sapphire access token. The token was small enough to disappear inside a closed hand, yet powerful enough to unlock encrypted financial records, secure vehicles, and emergency transportation routes. Mara stepped backward. A mirrored wall betrayed her. Rowan saw her reflection before she reached the corner. He followed her into the crowded club without revealing alarm. Whenever another employee passed, he became the calm professional everyone trusted. When Mara looked back, his expression carried a warning more frightening than open violence. Minutes later, a staff member delivered a message claiming Victor wanted his coat brought from a private storage room. Mara sensed something was wrong, but refusing an order connected to Victor could cost her position. She entered the service corridor alone. The door locked behind her. One security camera went dark for exactly 4 minutes. Upstairs, Victor noticed that Mara had not returned with the other employees. Rowan calmly suggested that she had probably become uncomfortable and left early. Knox Mercer checked the vehicle records. Mara had never exited the building. Victor's relaxed expression disappeared. He ordered every entrance sealed and prevented guests, employees, and security personnel from leaving. Rowan immediately volunteered to lead the search. Deep beneath the club, Mara regained consciousness on the floor of a narrow maintenance passage. Pain spread across her ribs, and blood darkened one sleeve of her uniform. Inside her pocket, she found Victor's stolen sapphire token. The truth struck her with terrifying clarity. Rowan had placed it there so that everyone would see a poor housekeeper with stolen property instead of a trusted guard protecting a dangerous secret. Footsteps echoed through the passage. Mara dragged herself toward the sound, believing Victor's men had finally found her. Then she recognized Rowan's controlled voice leading the search directly toward her. The footsteps drew closer as Mara searched the darkness for another escape. Her fingers found a fire alarm fixed beside a rusted emergency door. She pulled it with the last of her strength. Sirens erupted through the underground level. The emergency lock released, allowing her to stumble into a concrete service tunnel connected to the loading bay. Every breath burned through her ribs, and the stolen sapphire token felt like a death sentence inside her pocket. Behind her, Rowan changed his strategy. He removed his jacket, tore the sleeve of his shirt, and scraped his arm against a metal railing. By the time he reached the adjoining corridor, he looked like a loyal security chief who had fought desperately with a thief. Victor Cross descended into the tunnels with Knox Mercer and 4 armed guards after blood was discovered near the disabled camera. Above them, Frightened guests were being held inside the club while police sirens grew louder outside. Mara reached the loading platform and saw the open ramp leading toward the rooftop parking deck. Then Rowan stepped between her and the exit. Her body stopped responding. She backed against a concrete pillar as he approached with controlled confidence, knowing she was too injured to outrun him. Before he could reach her, Victor entered the loading bay. Mara's knees weakened. Bruises marked her neck and arms, while blood covered one side of her uniform. Yet her fear became far worse when Rowan moved forward and pretended to help her. Victor immediately stopped him. The reaction was instinctive. Mara had not panicked at the sight of Victor's armed guards. She had not recoiled from Knox. Her terror was directed at Rowan alone. Rowan produced the sapphire token from Mara's pocket and presented it as proof of theft. The club manager quickly supported his accusation. To him, the explanation was obvious. Mara was poor, deeply in debt, and employed to clean rooms filled with objects she could never afford. Her injuries mattered less to him than her social position. That assumption revealed the most dangerous part of Rowan's plan. He did not need perfect evidence. He only needed powerful people to believe that poverty was the same as guilt. Victor refused to let anyone restrain or punish Mara before a full investigation. However, he could not immediately condemn Rowan either. 12 years earlier, Rowan had taken a bullet meant for Victor. Since then, he had protected Victor's homes, routes, and private information without a single proven act of disloyalty. Victor's hesitation struck Mara harder than the accusation. He was protecting her body, but he still did not believe her truth. Knox crouched beside her and noticed dried blood beneath her fingernails. A narrow strip of dark fabric was tangled around the clasp of her broken watch. Victor ordered that nobody wash her hands, clean her clothing, or remove anything from her body until forensic evidence had been collected. Rowan suggested that Mara had injured herself while escaping after the theft. Yet Victor's attention settled on Rowan's torn sleeve. The missing fabric appeared to match the strip caught around Mara's watch. It was suspicious, but not enough to erase 12 years of trust. As police vehicles surrounded the club, Victor moved everyone to the rooftop parking deck. Rather than involve public authorities, he ordered Mara taken to a discreet private hospital. Rowan insisted on riding with her as head of security. Mara's face drained of color. Victor placed Rowan in a separate vehicle, though he still refused to accuse him without undeniable proof. At the hospital entrance, Mara collapsed into Knox's arms. Across the driveway, Rowan stared at the blood beneath her fingernails and realized his DNA might already be waiting to expose him. The blood beneath Mara's fingernails became the first piece of evidence Rowan could not explain away. Dr. Evelyn Hart moved Mara into a secure treatment room while Victor Cross waited behind the observation glass. The examination revealed bruising around Mara's throat, restraint marks on both wrists, and abrasions caused by being dragged across concrete. None of the injuries supported Rowan's claim that she had hurt herself while escaping after a theft. Dr. Hart collected skin cells from beneath Mara's nails, blood from her torn sleeve, and the fabric caught in her broken watch. She also recovered a second biological sample from the sapphire access token. Victor learned that the results would require 2 separate comparisons before they could be considered reliable. Rowan's DNA was already stored in the hospital system from an old gunshot injury, allowing Dr. Hart to conduct the test without requesting a new sample. The evidence pointed toward Rowan, but Victor remained divided. Believing Mara meant accepting that the man who had once saved his life might have spent years hiding behind that sacrifice. Loyalty had protected Victor's empire, yet it was now preventing him from seeing the threat standing inside it. Mara offered no dramatic plea. She remained silent in the recovery suite, her hands trembling beneath a hospital blanket. Her restraint made the accusation against Rowan feel even more disturbing. Knox connected a secure device to the nightclub's technical records. He discovered that the 4-minute camera failure had been authorized through Rowan's personal administrative code. Before Knox could copy the complete file, the record began deleting itself. Someone had accessed the system remotely through the hospital network. Moments later, a security warning spread through the building. Rowan claimed that armed men had been seen approaching the rear entrance. Guards rushed toward the lower floors while patients were moved away from the windows. During the confusion, Rowan entered the forensic corridor. Dr. Hart found him beside the refrigerated evidence cabinet. He explained his presence as part of the security sweep, but she immediately noticed that he had stopped beside the exact compartment containing Mara's samples. She refused to leave the laboratory. Once Rowan moved away, Dr. Hart divided the remaining evidence. One set stayed inside the hospital, while the second was sent to an independent laboratory under a false patient number. Victor decided to transfer Mara to his private island until the results were confirmed. Every arrival there required biometric approval, and its isolation had protected him through years of conflict. But Rowan had designed the island's security system. Mara tried to warn Knox that placing her there would give Rowan control over every camera, door, and escape route. Victor saw her fear but believed it came from the hospital attack rather than a specific danger waiting on the island. Rowan prepared the aircraft and quietly removed Mara's name from the official passenger record. Just before departure, Dr. Hart received the preliminary result. The DNA beneath Mara's fingernails matched Rowan Creed. Before she could send the report, the hospital lost power. Emergency lights filled the corridors as Rowan's men began moving equipment and patients. Dr. Hart concealed the backup report inside a medical supply case already scheduled for transport to the island. Hours later, Victor's aircraft landed beside the island villa. Mara stepped onto the runway under Rowan's security cameras, while Victor discovered that the medical case containing the confirmed DNA report had vanished during the flight. Victor Cross's private island looked like the safest place in his empire. The white stone villa stood above the ocean, surrounded by tropical gardens, guarded cottages, a lighthouse, and a private marina. Beneath the beauty ran service tunnels, water channels, and security systems designed by Rowan Creed himself. That was what made the island dangerous. Mara was placed in a distant guest cottage under the excuse that she needed quiet recovery. Knox immediately noticed that the building sat outside the fastest security response zone, but Rowan dismissed the concern as unnecessary caution. Victor continued reviewing the nightclub evidence while moving between the villa terrace, marina checkpoints, and island security posts. He avoided confining Mara, yet the missing hospital report kept doubt alive. Rowan used that doubt carefully. He planted expensive jewelry from Victor's mansion inside Mara's luggage. When another housekeeper discovered it, whispers spread across the island. Employees who had once spoken kindly to Mara began avoiding her. To them, a poor housekeeper stealing from a wealthy employer seemed easier to believe than a respected security chief committing betrayal. Victor did not order Mara's arrest, but his uncertainty deepened. Mara finally understood that Rowan's goal was larger than framing her. The confirmed DNA report could destroy him, and until it appeared, he needed her dead. That evening, a storm warning covered the island. Mara received a false medical notice directing her to the small clinic near the main villa. The path led through a glass botanical walkway surrounded by dense vegetation. Halfway across, the lights failed. Rowan attacked from behind. Mara struck him with a broken gardening tool and escaped through shattered glass into the tropical grounds. Rowan immediately activated an island-wide warning identifying her as an armed thief. Guards began hunting Mara without knowing they were protecting the man trying to kill her. She ran from the garden onto a narrow cliff path as rain made the rocks dangerously slick. With Rowan's men closing in, she entered an underground water tunnel beneath the island. Inside the tunnel, she found a waterproof medical case trapped against a drainage grate. The case had fallen from the hospital shipment. Inside it was Dr. Hart's duplicate DNA report. For the first time, Mara held proof stronger than Rowan's reputation. She knew Victor was her only chance, but Rowan expected her to return to the villa. Instead, she found an old maintenance map inside the tunnel and followed a concealed route toward the lighthouse. Victor had already gone there after Knox detected irregular signals near the marina. Mara reached the lighthouse stairway bleeding, exhausted and barely able to stand. Rowan appeared below her with a weapon and blocked the exit. He intended to make her fall from the upper platform and present her death as an accident during escape. Mara forced herself upward. Victor entered the lighthouse chamber moments before she collapsed through the doorway. Rowan followed with his weapon drawn, still presenting himself as the loyal guard stopping a dangerous thief. Mara placed the sealed report on the floor between them. Victor opened it, read the confirmed result, and slowly realized that the DNA belonged to the man standing directly behind him. Victor read the DNA report twice before lifting his eyes from the page. Dr. Evelyn Hart's findings confirmed skin cells beneath Mara's fingernails, blood transfer on her torn uniform, and fabric fibers matching Rowan's damaged sleeve. The evidence proved that Rowan had attacked her, planted the sapphire token, and tried to sabotage the investigation. Mara had told the truth from the beginning. Knox moved in front of the lighthouse exit as Rowan's calm expression finally broke. Rowan lunged for the report, but Victor stopped him before he could tear it apart. The struggle sent furniture crashing against the stone walls. Mara refused to remain helpless. She reached the lighthouse control panel and activated the emergency signal. A red warning beacon flashed across the storm-darkened island, drawing loyal guards toward the building. Rowan broke free and ran toward the marina, but armed men intercepted him before he reached the lower path. Victor's anger was matched by something more painful. He felt ashamed. His loyalty to Rowan had allowed Mara to be hunted, accused, and nearly killed. He had protected her from immediate punishment, but his refusal to believe her had given Rowan the time he needed to attack again. At the storm-covered dock, Victor gathered every member of the island staff. Before the same people who had judged Mara because of her poverty, he revealed the planted jewelry, the altered security records, and the confirmed DNA evidence. Mara's name was cleared completely. The truth exposed how easily wealth and reputation had outweighed the word of a poor housekeeper. Victor accepted responsibility for allowing Rowan's position to influence his judgment. He arranged permanent medical care for Mara and placed her under independent protection. Mara did not immediately forgive him. Her silence reminded Victor that proving her innocence could not erase the terror she had endured while he doubted her. Rather than executing Rowan, Victor removed everything that had once made him powerful. His rank, weapons, accounts, security authority, and access to every cross property were terminated. For Rowan, public disgrace was worse than physical punishment. He had built his identity around being the only man Victor trusted without question. Now he stood before the island staff as a traitor defeated by the woman he had considered too poor and powerless to fight back. Victor ordered him placed aboard a seaplane with only basic clothing and limited monitored funds. He chose exile because Rowan had once saved his life. That mercy became his next mistake. During the flight to the mainland, Rowan retrieved an emergency communication device hidden inside his boot. He contacted Silas Vane, Victor's most dangerous enemy. Rowan surrendered the island's defense layout, yacht access codes, hidden sea routes, financial vault locations, and the identities of Victor's informants. Silas offered him protection, but Rowan wanted more than survival. He wanted Victor's empire destroyed. He revealed that the storm had grounded Victor's aircraft and would soon force him to leave the island aboard his luxury yacht. Back at the marina, Knox discovered that Rowan had copied several yacht security files before his expulsion. Victor immediately changed the planned route, unaware that Rowan had designed the alternative route as well. As Victor's yacht sailed beyond the island, an unidentified vessel emerged from behind the storm line and began following them. The unidentified vessel remained beyond the storm line as Victor Cross redirected his yacht toward a hidden coastal estate. The estate was built into a mountain above the harbor, protected by stone walls, private tunnels, and a cliffside guest house. Victor intended to reorganize his security before continuing the journey. Mara was placed in the guest house while Knox examined every system Rowan had controlled. The results were worse than expected. Rowan had created hidden master permissions years earlier. Removing his official access had changed nothing. He could still enter transportation systems, communications networks, and emergency defenses through invisible administrative routes. At the same time, Silas Vane used Rowan's information to destroy 2 of Victor's protected supply routes. Several allies withdrew their support after receiving reports that Victor had become weak, distracted, and emotionally controlled by a housekeeper. The lie was carefully designed to damage both his authority and Mara's credibility. Victor finally understood that Rowan was no longer trying only to kill Mara. He was dismantling 12 years of Victor's empire one secret at a time. Mara became essential to the investigation because Rowan had never considered household employees intelligent enough to notice him. She remembered the unusual keys he carried, the sealed bags he moved after midnight, and the service elevators he used without appearing on official records. One memory led them to an abandoned theater near the old harbor. Years earlier, Victor had used the building for private meetings before transferring his operations to the island. A concealed passage beneath the coastal estate connected directly to its basement. Victor, Knox, and Mara entered through the underground route. Inside the dark theater, they discovered a hidden recording device behind the damaged stage wall. It contained years of footage showing Rowan secretly documenting Victor's meetings, routes, and security changes. The betrayal had begun long before the nightclub. Rowan had been collecting leverage while pretending to protect the man who trusted him most. A partial file on the device appeared to reveal Silas's next move. According to the plan, armed teams would attack the coastal estate before dawn. Victor ordered everyone transferred onto the yacht to escape the expected land assault. That was exactly what Rowan wanted. As the staff boarded, Mara noticed something wrong with the recovered file. Rowan always used month-first dates in his genuine security reports, but the supposed attack plan used the day-first format. The document had been created to look foreign. It was not stolen intelligence. It was bait. Mara warned Knox, but the yacht had already left the terminal. An explosion tore through the harbor behind them, destroying the dock and blocking every route back to land. Communications failed moments later. Knox attempted to activate the yacht's automated defense system, but the approaching vessels appeared as friendly units. Rowan's hidden master codes were still controlling the network. Victor looked across the dark water and realized the truth. The yacht was never their escape route. It was the place selected for their execution. 3 armed boats surrounded them, and Rowan Creed stood at the front of the lead vessel. Rowan's lead vessel moved alongside the yacht as its engines suddenly failed. Electronic locks sealed several interior corridors, while Victor Cross's automated defenses remained inactive. The attackers had been registered as friendly personnel through Rowan's hidden master codes. Gunmen boarded from both sides. The assault spread from the upper deck into the dining salon, then down through the medical cabin and engine corridor. Victor divided his remaining guards between protecting the staff and forcing the yacht's controls into manual operation. Mara watched the attackers push frightened employees toward the emergency launch platform. The movement felt too organized. She recognized Rowan's method. He never created chaos without preparing the place where his victims would run. Mara inspected the nearest lifeboat and found an explosive device hidden beneath the rear seating compartment. She stopped several injured workers from boarding only seconds before the timer activated. Knox disconnected the device and manually launched a second rescue craft. Victor remained behind. He understood that the enemy boats would fire on the survivors unless someone kept their attention on the burning yacht. As Knox moved Mara and the injured staff away, Victor climbed toward the stern and activated the remaining exterior weapons by hand. Rowan boarded personally. Silas Vane stayed aboard the lead attack vessel, unwilling to risk his own life. Rowan wanted more than Victor's death. He wanted the man who had humiliated him to understand that every collapsing piece of his empire had been destroyed by someone he once trusted. Fire spread through the lower deck as fuel poured into the engine corridor. Victor and Rowan fought near the stern while the yacht tilted beneath them. Rowan's knowledge of the vessel allowed him to anticipate every escape route, but Victor forced him toward the damaged launch controls. A gunshot struck Victor in the side. He staggered but remained standing long enough to destroy the control panel connected to Rowan's waiting boat. The second explosion tore through the rear deck. Victor disappeared beneath burning debris and fell into the black ocean. From the rescue craft, Knox saw him vanish. Turning back would have exposed Mara and every injured survivor to the enemy vessels. Rowan remained near the shattered railing, watching the water. Victor never resurfaced. Within hours, Silas announced through criminal networks that Victor Cross was dead. Several allies abandoned his organization before a body had even been recovered. Mara refused to accept the claim completely. Rowan had already used false evidence, staged reports, and manufactured appearances. To her, an empty ocean proved nothing. Beneath the burning fuel, Victor was still alive. He forced himself deeper, swimming below the flames and enemy searchlights. Blood from his wound clouded the water, but years of marine survival training taught him to control his breathing and follow the current away from the wreck. Nearly unconscious, he reached a narrow sea cave beneath the coastal cliffs. Inside, he found an abandoned emergency radio left behind by former Coast Guards. Through broken transmissions, Victor heard Rowan preparing to hunt Mara next. A bloodied hand tightened around the rocks as Victor Cross rose from the water and began planning the return no one would survive. Silas Vane turned Victor Cross's apparent death into a public celebration. A criminal gathering was arranged aboard a decommissioned casino ship anchored inside a flooded shipyard. Silas invited captains, smugglers, and former allies of Victor to witness the transfer of territory. Rowan attended as Silas's new security chief, but his victory quickly began to feel unstable. Silas understood one brutal truth. A man who betrayed one Don could betray another. Mara, Knox, and several surviving staff members were taken to the casino ship because Silas believed they possessed access codes Rowan had never obtained. Mara was kept near the ship's central gaming hall while Rowan supervised the guards. Unknown to them, Knox had already received a coded transmission through the abandoned Coast Guard radio network. Victor was alive. He ordered Knox to maintain the appearance of defeat while he recovered inside a hidden coastal safehouse. Several days later, Victor entered the flooded shipyard through underwater maintenance tunnels beneath the casino vessel. He did not attack immediately. Instead, he used Rowan's methods against him. Victor planted evidence suggesting Silas intended to kill Rowan after the celebration. He also sent Silas proof that Rowan had secretly retained copies of every security file and financial secret he had sold. Suspicion destroyed their alliance before Victor revealed himself. Rowan attempted to escape with Silas's money and encrypted records, but Silas's men sealed the exits. At that moment, power across the casino ship failed. Emergency lights illuminated the central gaming hall. Victor stood beneath them, wounded but alive. Panic moved through the gathering as men who had already divided his empire realized they had celebrated too soon. Victor's loyal captains turned against Silas after receiving evidence that Silas planned to eliminate them once the takeover was complete. Knox freed Mara and the captured staff. Rowan seized Mara and tried to use her as protection, expecting the terrified housekeeper from the nightclub to freeze again. She did not. Mara activated the ship's emergency bulkheads, separating Rowan from his escape route and trapping him inside a flooded service corridor. Victor followed. The corridor resembled the underground passage where Rowan had first attacked Mara. This time, however, Rowan had no reputation, authority, or loyal guards left to protect him. Victor forced him to face the consequences of weaponizing loyalty, poverty, and fear. Silas attempted to escape aboard a speedboat, but damaged marina locks trapped him inside the shipyard. His abandoned captains surrendered him to Victor's allies. Rowan expected execution. Victor chose something worse. The hospital DNA evidence, nightclub footage, sabotage records, and proof of attempted murder were delivered anonymously to federal investigators. Rowan was publicly exposed, stripped of every account and title, and imprisoned as an ordinary criminal. Silas's empire collapsed after Victor released evidence of his betrayals to rival organizations. Mara's name was formally cleared. Victor offered her a new position overseeing employee protection and independent security reporting. She accepted only after he established one permanent rule: loyalty would never again replace evidence. Months later, Mara stood inside the rebuilt island lighthouse. When footsteps approached behind her, she no longer trembled. But Knox had just discovered that an encrypted nightclub file had been accessed by an unknown insider before Rowan's arrest.